Hello, Flosstube. I'm Debbie, otherwise known as Vale. You can find me on Instagram as Vale the Stitcher. I also have a shop on Etsy called Vale Stitchery, where I have my own designs that are typically fantasy and Halloween based. This is Esther. She's about 6 months old and she's my new stitchy buddy. And I'm actually surprised that she's letting me hold her this long. Anyways, it is Monday, April 6th. It is after 5 p.m. Full day of work has finally finished. I received a package in the mail and I have been trying to film a floss tube for like 4 days. So we are going to do this. Um, I made notes. I made notes and everything. So, um, it has been a very long time since I recorded, and let's just say life. Life is a lot sometimes. I'm recording from a new location because I have moved, and the best lighting in the house is actually in my bedroom. So that is where we are right now. Um, I have been watching so much Flosstube lately. I have been incredibly appreciative of the extra episodes that some of my favorite Flosstubers have been putting out. And so I really wanted to contribute as well, especially since lately I have just been starting all the things. So figure let's contribute. Um, so the only thing I will say life-wise, just up front, is that in relation to my cross stitch, typically I am a goal-driven stitcher. I work on a project with a very specific goal in mind of either finishing a page or getting to a certain stopping point before I move on to something else. And lately that has actually been killing my stitchy bug, and I think it is the like obligation that is tied to that. And normally I'm super inspired and I like goals and it helps me feel like I'm being productive, but lately it has just been obligation that has been stressing me out. So about a week ago I gave myself permission to just start do whatever I wanted. Whatever I wanted. I mean, cross stitch is my happy place. And if I just want to start a new project every day, every other day, nothing wrong with that. Um, so yeah, my process has changed in the last week, and I have quite a few new starts planned. So I have a lot to show you today, and I'm going to pause the video real quick so that I can let my cat out of the room, and hopefully she won't yell at me. So she's probably gonna, go on the other side of the room with the door closed and then meow at me to get back in. And, life is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? The grass is always greener. Whatever. I'll be right back. And we're back, I think. We are not paused anymore. Okay. So we have finishes, we have whips, we have haul, and we have plans. And then we'll have just a little life chat, maybe. So let's get right into it. I'm basically going to be showing anything recent, which means basically since the start of the year. And some of the finishes, since I have not been finishing anything lately, some of these finishes might be from like the end of last year. So the first finish that I will show is a tiny little thing that I did with my mom in mind, which is this little seashell that I'm planning to turn into an ornament, like a flat finish for my mom. She lives at the beach over in Florida, and she would love this. And interestingly enough, this is actually the first time I had ever used 40 count fabric or used over dyed fancy floss. So this is stitched on 40 count, I think it's called French lace by Witchelt, I think. So this was before I knew what I loved about fabric. But it's still, I stitched this in hand, and the Witchelt fabric, it tends to be a little stiffer, so that was fine. And then I don't know if you can see the slight variegation, but This is stitched in Weeks Ocean. So it's got a bit of a brighter teal and then a bit of a duller teal, and I just loved it. I don't remember where I got the pattern from. I know I got it off Etsy, and there were like several silhouettes of shells in the same pattern, and I'll dig it out of my closet and I'll add it into the description box below, just in case you're interested. It was super affordable, and it was exactly what I was looking for. Then, also on 40 count, this is Vintage Country Mocha, I think. I just stitched one of the, let's go over here, one of the Prairie Schooler Santas. This is one of the ones from the 80s. However, so I got a pack, excuse me, I got a pack of these Santas from 123 Stitch, like 8 or 9 of them. And it may be like all of the Santas from the 80s, I don't know. But I stitched this guy and I basically pulled floss, DMC floss that of colors that I was interested in doing. In the 80s, Christmas green was a bit more blue, which I didn't really want. So I basically changed up all the colors. I don't remember what I used. I just kind of went as, you know, I just did as I went. And again, I stitched this for my mom because she loves Santas. Of course, never finished it. However, I used the other piece of this fabric. So like basically this bottom part or the top part all the way up of this fat quarter, I used to stitch another finish that I'll show you, but I was stitching on it while my mom was in town, and she saw the Santa like on the end of the fabric, and she just, I knew she would, but she commented, she was like, I love that Santa so much. I would just love, you know, ornaments. I would put them on my tree. Like if you wanted to finish that up, she's like, I would totally take that off your hands. Which, you know, because I know my mom so well, so that was nice to hear because lo and behold, it was originally stitched for her in mind. Another finish I have here is this guy. This is something I designed myself. This is available in the Vale Stitchery shop, valestitchery.etsy.com. This is called Winter in Plaid, and it is, you know, you got the buffalo plaid ornaments, and this design kind of came out of me trying to design some smalls. I typically cannot design anything that is less than a finished size of 8 inches by 10 inches. For some reason, I cannot design anything smaller than that. And so this was a challenge for myself to design some ornaments. And so I originally designed these silhouettes, and I was in love with a friend's throw blanket that was over her couch that was actually a black, white, and gray kind of buffalo plaid type situation that she had. And so I made them originally with a white and gray spectrum, which that color conversion is part of a pattern. And then you have this top section here. What's great is I finished it all together because I wanted to show the whole thing, and I'm planning to fully finish this mounted on a piece of rustic board with some like decorative picks to go with it, and perhaps, you know, a bow or two. However, I kind of ran out of steam and ran out of budget near the end of last year, so that didn't quite happen. But technically, like, what I love about this is you could stitch the top part by itself. You could actually stitch these as ornaments. Again, I love like the white, black, and gray plaid look too. So this could be stitched like on like a light gray fabric with that sort of colorway. But anyway, that is one of the few finishes I have done in the last several months. Then, let's see. Oh, so this one is fully framed and everything. This is called Rose Blush. This is by LolaLotta shop on Etsy, and this was like an emergency stitch. I stopped whatever I was doing to stitch on this. It took me maybe 4 or 5 days. because it was for it was for my grandma's 90th birthday. Apparently, they were having a birthday party for her over like across the country, and my cousin asked me last minute or 2 weeks ahead of time if I wanted to fly out for the weekend for that party, and she because she had flight miles, and so it would have been a free trip, but like work, this was in February, and work was like so crazy. Every time I fly, I end up getting sick. And like that weekend trip, I had no time off. So it would literally be me doing a red eye Friday night, flying back on Sunday, trying to meet all my deadlines at work, hopefully not getting sick. And I told her, I'm like, that's awesome. A free trip is awesome. It will never not be awesome. But I'm like, I cannot. And I felt so bad about not being able to go that I dropped everything to stitch this. Now, that was in February, and I still have it. I was supposed to ship this out, and then I didn't. And then the coronavirus situation really like got crazy, and now I don't really want to send my 90-year-old grandmother a package in the mail that could have any kind of germs on it. So I figured I'll just hold on to it, all nicely finished in this lovely frame. I will just hold on to it, and I will send it to her in a little bit. So there's that. That was really fun to stitch. And what's really interesting about this actually is that the back stitch, some of the back stitch is with one strand and some of the back stitch is charted with two strands. And it really provides that extra dimension. That was a lot of fun to do. I typically don't like back stitch. I feel like it's just really grueling after you've done all the cross stitching, but that was really fun. Okay, so then after that, I designed and stitched and FFO'd this bad boy. This is a quote from the first paragraph of H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Call of Cthulhu. It says, "We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far." And I've had this tentacle in my mind for ages. And I sketched it and then I drew it in my cross stitch program and colored it in. And I had to stitch it. And this was a focus piece. Like when I first started stitching on this, I did not stop until it was done. And it took me about 3 weeks total. This is done on, sorry. Nope. Okay. This is done on 40 count Country Mocha, which is the other piece from the Santa ornament. One strand of DMC floss, and I've got this wood frame with no back, no glass or anything. It was just a open wood frame from Hobby Lobby, 50% off. So this frame cost me like $16, and I mounted the fabric onto sticky matting board. And then all I did was I filled the back with some, what do you call it? Some of that thick board. I cannot think of what it's freaking called. It's this stuff. It's this stuff. I cannot think of what it's called. But anyway, and then I shoved this in the back, and all I did was put some masking tape on it, and that's it. And this bad boy is mounted on my mantle, right in the middle, because I like a little bit of gothic in my life. So this was super fun. This pattern is called Placid Island, and it is available in the Vale Stitchery shop, valestitchery.etsy.com. It's a PDF. And then the last finishes I have are from the same pattern, also my design. This again, I was challenging myself to design some smalls. So last year around Halloween, I actually designed these three ornaments, and I didn't know how to finish it off. And I really like the idea of being able to show ornaments as a full one piece that could be used in other ways. So like this is a full piece, but you could individually stitch those different sections as ornaments or whatever. So this is also stitch on 40 count. I love 40 count, you guys. I love stitching with one strand. I typically start with the pin stitch whenever I can, and I just run my, when I get to the end, I run my thread underneath a couple stitches and that's it. So there you have that. Now this is not fully finished. I started finishing this. It's not done. It needs a lot more. I'm thinking some black lace. I'm thinking some like black flowers, something a little grungy to grunge this up a little bit. It's too clean. But so far it's been mounted on sticky board on top of some black velvet fabric that is also on sticky board. And then I have some little piping edging that I just glued down, but it needs more because this is not, it's too clean looking. This fabric is, so it's 40 count, but it's Nocturne by Picture This Plus. And I had just bought like one of those really small pieces, like an 8 by 12 or whatever, just to test out the color. So being 40 count, you can fit a lot more on a small piece of 40 count than you could on like a 28 count or whatever. So I thought it would be perfect to just be able to stitch all these on one. And this is like 5 inches by 5 inches square. So there's that. And then I wanted to stitch them like individually, and these have been waiting to be FFO'd for like 2 weeks. So I have the backing fabric like cut out, and it's more of that black velvet, which is really hard to hand stitch together, hand sew, but it's gonna look really awesome. And then I decided to take, since I had already stitched the pattern once, I took the opportunity to kind of change up things a little bit. And so I stitched this, I stitched the main part of the house with DMC variations in 4000, I think it is, and it's just a bunch of earth tones, and I don't know how it's coming out in the video, but I think it came out really great because it's just very moody looking. So I look forward to finishing that into a pillow. And then I also stitched the barn one, and I took the opportunity to take some liberties again with the color, and the main color is DMC Variations 115, which is the red variation. And I tried to go up and down when I was stitching on the silo part, and then side to side on the rest of the barn to kind of give it a little bit of different variation. So that's stitched up super fast. This fabric is Gingerbread by Picture This Plus in 28 count, and that's stitched up super fast. So I really need to finish those because I told myself I was not going to put this pattern up in my shop until I can take pictures of my FFOs. So we will get to that when we get to that. Again, obligations right now, we're taking a break. So that is all of my finishes to show you so far. I typically don't get a lot of finishes because I like to stitch on large projects and they take a while. So let's talk about some whips. The whips I'm pulling out are basically things I've worked on since the beginning of the year, or things that I think I might work on in the very near future. So I've got 15 whips to show you. We are going to start, I have them grouped because there's so many. I have a couple of HAEDs to show you, some Heaven and Earth designs, full coverage, and then a smattering of other things. And let's go from there. So the first one I'm going to show you is Ornament Witching Hour by Lisa Parker. And I started this last October. I probably stitched on it for a weekend, and I stitched it 2 strands over 1 tent stitch on 28 count. This was just a white even weave 28 count that I got from Hobby Lobby, and then I hand dyed it. It's coming up gray in the video, of course, but it's actually more of a purple color. And I managed to get the first page completed all in that one weekend because there was honestly only about maybe 5 or 6 colors in this one page, and doing the 10th stitch meant you were completing each section like twice as fast. So that went by really fast. My plan for this is I'm probably not going to pull it out again until October, and I'm hoping to get another page done in October. That's it. That's my only goal for that, because I have, as you will see, several other HAEDs to work on. But that one's a lot of fun. And honestly, if I focused on it, I could probably get it done very quickly. But as you will also see, I am not very focused. So the next one I want to show is Mini the Watchmen, or Mini Watchmen, also by Lisa Parker. Very moody. This was one of the first minis I ever purchased, and I just made a very small start on it. It was one weekend where I just didn't want to work on anything I had in my stash already, any of my whips, and so I made a very small start. It's like 800 or 900 stitches or something in there. And this is 18 count Ivory Ada by Zweigart. It's very soft. It is very soft. It's very easy to work with. And because this is a mini, I kind of wanted it still to be kind of like a poster size. So this was the first Heaven and Earth Designs piece that I decided to try on 18 count. My only concern is it's going to use up a lot of floss, but I think it'll look nice. The next one, I do not have a lot done on this one, but more than that, but per its size. I started this was actually my birthday start. I'll just show it first. So this was actually my birthday start last year. My birthday's on December 1st, which landed over the US Thanksgiving holiday last year. And the moment I saw this browsing through the HAED site, I fell in love with it. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, and so she, of course, reminds me of a tiefling. If that may not make sense to you, but that's okay. Super fantasy, super blue, smoky light around her. She's got this like glowy skin. She's got some scars on her. She looks super badass, and I want her portrait up with my lovely gothic decor in my living room. I would love that. So my original plan, about half the stitches in this chart are black, DMC 310. So my original thought was I will buy black fabric and I will stitch everything but the black stitches. And I'll do it on a smaller count fabric so I can just do 10 stitches. You know, it'll go by fast because, you know, I don't have enough years in my life to be able to stitch all the things I want to stitch, right? So let's cut some corners. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't see the holes. I got 32 count Belfast linen in black, and I couldn't see the holes enough to do the over one. Even if it's 10 stitch, I still couldn't, like, I was getting stuck with the confetti of just getting started, and I couldn't do it. So I ended up still, because I had kitted up all the floss, I was ready to go. It was my birthday start. It was Thanksgiving weekend. I was at home ready to do this. So I had a piece of white Belfast 32 count linen. And so I did start. And this is the first 2 pages from the top left corner. And I did most of this actually this year in 2020. But it went so fast because it is, you know, it is 2/1 10 stitch, and this is only 3 colors, and of course most of it is black. But so that's the first 2 pages. I would love to get more done on this. I would love to get to her face. My only issue is that I have another HAED that has way more priority than this one right now, which I'll show you. So I'm hoping, like, if I can get another page done on her this year, I will be happy. But we'll see. as we all know, plans are one thing. What actually happens is different sometimes. Um, the next HAED I want to show you was my next start after that one, which is Supersized Once Upon a Fairytale with Max Colors. Before this was announced, like this was announced in like August of last year or something like that. I had already been itching to start one of Aimee Stewart's bookshelves, and I had landed on the Treasure Hunt bookshelf. And so I purchased that, and I was actually gonna use that as my birthday start. But then when this was announced, I was like, if I'm going to do any bookshelf, it's gonna be this bookshelf. And it has to be supersized max color because of all the details in this chart of all these scenes. I have to be able to maximize that. So I all my plans for Treasure Hunt bookshelf went out the window, and I waited on this. I didn't know when it was going to be released, but I waited on it. And so my birthday start shifted to the Commodore because I didn't know when this was going to come out. So I kitted up the other one. And of course that came out like the Monday after. It was like Cyber Monday, I think, or was it the Monday before Black Friday? I don't know, but it came out around then. Anyway, this is like a whole yard of 28 count even weave, and I'm stitching it, of course, 2 strands over 1 tent stitch, and this is how far I've gotten. This is about 2.5 pages, and I was hardcore dedicated to this. At the beginning of the year, of course, I had tons of plans of all the things I was going to do this year, and one of those goals was to reach 10% complete on this chart, which is about 70,000 stitches or something like that. So this is actually 2%. By the end of January, I was at 2% complete. And the first page on the far left, I actually completed by New Year's Eve of last year, and then I gave it a break and came right back to it as soon as I could and got through all of those books moving to the right until I hit 2%, and then I told myself I was going to put it away until at least the end of February to March. But as of right now, because of everything that's going on and my issues with obligations, I'm not feeling this right now. Therefore, I don't know when I'm going to pick this up. I don't know. However, with all the Flosstube I was watching, I got super inspired to put some stitches in on a full coverage chart, and I figured if I was only going to touch one of my full coverages, it had to be my first love. And my first love is the first HAED chart I ever purchased. I actually had to restart it a second time. That's how much I love it. And it is Ex Machina by Chris Ortega. Love the steampunk. I love actually all of the earth tones that are in this image. All of the browns and the coppers and the greens, like that's very calming to me. And of course I started in the upper left-hand corner with that stained glass window clock, which was of course full of confetti, but beautiful at the same time. I started this near the beginning of last year, then restarted it. I got through 3 pages last year, completed a 4th page in January of this year, and then pulled it out just this past weekend. Let me fold this over. This is stitched on, of course, this was my first HAED, right? The smallest count I had ever stitched on up until that point was 22 count Hardanger, so that is what I stitched this on. I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. It bothers some people because the stitches, I'm stitching with 2 strands, and yes, it does get a little bulky, but not enough to bother me. Yeah. So this is about 4.5 pages, so 4 pages across the top, and then I got distracted by the little bit of hat that showed through on that 4th page, and immediately, especially with Pattern Keeper, I just went down. I was like, no, I'm gonna go for it. So I've been working on her hat, and over the weekend I got to that goggle and finished that goggle up. So yeah, I love this. I still love it. I still love this so much. I do not see myself ever getting tired of it. However, I'm in the mood for all the starts. So I did about 2,000 stitches on this over the weekend, and I don't know when I'm going to get back to it. I figured about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll probably get all the new starts out of my system, and then I will get the urge to get organized again, and I will come up with goals again, and we'll see how well I follow them. But yeah, I love this one so much. Okay, I think just one more HAED. This is the most recent start. This was completely impulsive and crazy, and I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to just start it because, so I started it from Stash. I purchased it last year during like a 50% off sale, and this is another Lisa Parker. Lisa Parker is one of my favorite artists on HAED, on the Heaven Earth Designs website. This is called The Unicorns, and it is peaceful and fantastical, and it's like that unicorn is saying, hey, are you coming with us? That's what it looks like to me. So I moved in December to a larger home where I actually had my own bedroom this year. Last year I slept in the living room. It's a whole thing of its own. But I was like, finally, probably the first time in my adult life, and I am 35 years old, that I finally got to really think about decorating and nesting and making my bedroom my own. And so I ended up like with this whole, I call it a Midsummer Night's Dream theme for my room. So I have like garland wrapped with white twinkle lights. I've got wrought iron candle fixtures with white candles in them. I've got some artwork on the walls of like purpley and bluish flowers. I have a quilt for my bed that is got a bit of a floral print to it with like gray, and then I've got some like royal purple pillows for my bed and stuff. So yeah, it's just, it to me it's like very like Twilight in the Garden type feel to it. And so above me, so this is my headboard, and above me you see this arc of garland, and there's a huge space right there, like right above my headboard, which is begging for some artwork. So what do I think? I think, hey, I don't have any cross stitch up in my bedroom, by the way. And I was like, this would be great above my headboard. That would be great. That would go with this whole like fantasy, mystical, like dreamlike feeling. So I spent like 2 or 3 days super inspired for this piece before my senses came back. And I have like 400, actually I can even fold this again because there's just nothing here. That's like 400, 500, I don't know, 600 maybe stitches. And I was like, why am I spending my time on this? I have so many other things I need to do. So many other things I need to do that are higher priority than this. I'm like, girl, go out and buy yourself some artwork or something, because are you gonna wait like at least, I mean, I could probably get this done in maybe 5 years if I super hardcore concentrated on it, but is that gonna happen? No. But anyway, this is the top left corner, and the colors are gorgeous, and of course, gorgeous, but honestly, what was I thinking? And of course, I had to start it immediately, right? So I didn't plan anything. I had a huge piece of 22 count hardanger, so I was like, this will fit, and it'll actually fit really nicely in that space. So I just pulled out this fabric. I was pulling colors from other projects containers to work on this. Why? It's gorgeous, but honestly not a priority. That's okay. All right, the last full coverage piece I'm going to show is just because it was kind of near the top of one of my drawers. I actually haven't worked on this in a while, but this is the Super Mario World map. Super Mario World was a Super Nintendo game. It was one of my favorite games when I was a kid, And I bought this off of Etsy and started it over Labor Day weekend last year. And I remember this because I had a huge, massive, days-long panic attack that weekend. And I could not work on any of my current projects. They were all tainted with this panic attack of nerves that were not connected to anything. And so this, doing something that was nostalgic, doing something that was super easy, you outline with black and then you fill in with color, it was just exactly what I needed. So I got some 28 count even weave, just in white, because this is a full coverage piece. And I'm doing it 2 strands over 1 fabric thread, 10th stitch, and I don't even know how many stitches that is. This is just a couple, this is like maybe 2 weeks of progress here and there, and I haven't picked it up in a while. I almost actually thought about picking it up last week because with everything going on, this is like my relaxation piece, but I started new things instead. So here is the picture of what the map looks like in its entirety, and I started up here in the left-hand corner because my brain doesn't work any other way. I have to start in the top left, unless the middle makes more sense, but in full coverage, top left corner is best for me. This is a pattern from Box Cat Shop on Etsy. I know there are other places that you can find that map, but that's just where I found it. Okay, so that's all full coverage. No immediate plans to work on that, any of those again, unless I get pulled to finish that page on Ex Machina, but we'll see. Okay, so the other stuff is a mix of my patterns that I designed that I am in the middle of stitching, or super awesome designs from other designers. So the first one is the Nightmare Before Christmas alphabet. I started this back when I designed it, and I did it it's 1/1 full cross on a 28 count mushroom, I think, mushroom even weave, I think, and that is how far I got. And I have been wanting to stitch on this. I love Halloween all year, and I've been wanting to stitch on this, but it has been at the bottom of a drawer for a very long time. And about a month and a half ago, I pulled out every whip I own and took a picture of them. Didn't do anything with that, did not show it to anybody or put it on Instagram, but I took a picture of every single whip I have in there. And when I pulled this one out, I was like, oh, this was one of the ones that I was like, oh, I want to stitch on this. So I have it out because I might work on it during the course of all of my new start shenanigans. We'll see. Love that. Okay, the next one is also a Halloween design. This is Castle Lake Creep by Glendon Place. I did show this in one of my prior videos. I love this design. It's a little whimsical, a little weird. For some reason, I am super excited to stitch the moat of all that water. I don't know why. I think it's my full coverage tendencies. But I started in the top left corner because I'm like that, and I got the whole top row of pages done except for the moon. I did not get any of the fancy floss that goes with this. I got all the DMC, but because the moon is so big, I was debating about what color I wanted to do, and I am thinking about getting an over-dyed cotton to do the moon instead of just a plain DMC, because I think even slight variegation would be more interesting to look at than, say, an ecru or a light yellow or something. So I am stitching this on 18 count. I think it's either 16 count or 18 count. I think this is 18 count. I like 18 count way more than 16 count. I'm pretty sure it's 18 count. Haunted by Picture This Plus. And this is the top row of pages except for the moon. And this was a lot of fun to stitch. again, you don't really have to think too much. I made a working copy and I was highlighting as I went. And it basically, each little section has like 3 different colors that go with it. So like that tree branch has like 3 browns, and that spire on top of the castle has like 3 grays. So it's pretty easy to follow along. So that one is a lot of fun. I'm probably not going to stitch this until October. I do have a goal that I would like to spend perhaps 7 days on this in October, so we'll see. Okay, the next one is one that I designed. This is a Vale Stitchery pattern. This is available in the Vale Stitchery shop, valestitchery.etsy.com. This is not official, but I'm basically calling this part of my adventurer series. This is called In a Tavern. And it says, once upon a time, an adventurer walked into a tavern. Because the biggest trope ever in Dungeons and Dragons is that most campaigns, most stories begin with various adventurers coalescing in a tavern, and the inciting event happens there, or they're given their inciting event there. So, all great adventures in this trope begin in the tavern. So I am stitching this on 32 count natural Belfast linen. I've actually gotten really far. I haven't even been showing this on Instagram, but I've gotten pretty far on building this tavern. I love the font. I've used this font in a couple of things now. I'm thinking of maybe, we'll talk about samplers in a little bit, but I have been thinking about maybe turning this font as part of a sampler design, but we'll see. Anyways, so here's the tavern, and I love the windows. The windows are all glowy with some orange. Again, I love that font. I'm almost done with the tavern itself. I just have to do like the top level there. You can see the stitches. So I'm doing that two strands, 2 over 2. It's, you know, it's gonna be a nice size. I can't wait to finish that. I really want to get like the top of the tavern done and then get to some of the words and go from there. By the way, if I'm bouncing around a little bit in the video, it's because I am sitting on my bed and I have my laptop propped up on some like storage buckets so that like I'm not looking down on you. And every time I move around, the storage buckets, of course, are on the mattress, and I'm sorry. So the next one is the second one in the Adventurer series called the Mausoleum. And this was one of my first new starts over the last week and a half. And you cannot tell from this photo, but there's a couple of really cool like hidden things going on. Like there's a skeleton kind of poking out to the right of the mausoleum, and there's a ghosty floating over top one of the tombstones. And yeah, I love this one. I am stitching this on a piece of 28 count even weave that I dyed myself. I was actually, I was going for like a really dark purpley grayish black, and it kind of just came out like a purpley gray. It's definitely a bit more purple than gray in this, you know, than it's showing up. And this is all I did. I did a lot of the first page of the pattern. And I love the way this is turning out. I love those clouds. I love that font. I love the ivy beneath the font. Sorry, I am orienting all weird. I love this. I think that I may stitch on this some more in the coming weeks for sure. I love stitching on various types of fabrics and being able to switch back and forth between the different techniques, because when I do get to 28 count 2/2, it is like a dream. It stitches up so fast. It's also like if I go from stitching linen to stitching on like Aida, the Aida just like I like blow through those stitches. So I love stitching on multiple things because I feel like that change up keeps things fresh and it keeps me really enjoying the hobby. Okay, the next thing is something I've been toying with most recently, one of my patterns. By the way, the Tavern and the Mausoleum are both available in the Vale Stitchery shop right now as PDFs, valestitchery.etsy.com. So this one is not available. I've been playing around with something. I got super inspired by like pincushion boxes, and so I'm challenging myself to try and stitch some smalls. So I started out with some, these are just two motifs that I've been working on, but I really I just wanted to start all the new things, so I just took these and decided to start stitching them, and I plan to stitch both ways, the silhouette version and the color version. So when I started it, I decided to start just with the silhouette version because it's just black. I can always find a skein of black 310 DMC. Every time I go to a craft store, I probably pick up like 2 or 3 skeins. As if I'm afraid I'm gonna run out. Okay, so here's the moon, and this is stitched on 22 count hardanger. I don't know why, I love 22 count hardanger. However, ever since I was introduced to 40 count linen, I do love the way stitches look on 40 count linen. So yeah, this was my favorite before that discovery. And I think 22 count hardanger is kind of a good compromise for folks that may be interested in stitching smaller, but they're a little intimidated by the linen of having to count, because hardanger, it's of course very similar to Aida in that the squares are already there for you. You don't really have to count very much. So again, I'm a huge fan of negative space, of stitching around the negative space and having the negative space tell a story. So I love this, and I love the way it came out, and if I can get my finishing mojo going, I would love to take this and turn it into like a pincushion. I got some paper mache boxes that are like 3 inches round and 3 inches square, to fix a super plush cushion up piece on top of the lid. But, I just have not had a finishing mojo. And then I started the sun, and where am I? I started up here and worked my way down, and as I got here, I realized that over here I made a 2-stitch counting error, so I have to undo all of this. And so I just put it down, because we're all about the starts. We are not about frogging. We are not about any kind of obligation, so I told myself I will come back to this. But yeah, I think they look great. This fabric, I rip dyed myself, and I think it came out pretty good. I was looking for like a really rich parchment color, like really rich tan, and I like the way that came out. Okay, the next one I have was started just last week. Actually, right after I made that counting error and realized I needed a frog, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I have this fully kitted. I have it fully kitted and ready to go. I kitted it up last year, and I actually thought this was going to be my first day of fall start this year, and I was like, nope, let's start it right now. I have everything I need. So this is Autumn Dream by Cottage Garden Samplers, right? Yeah, no, Samplings. Cottage Garden Samplings. This is number 11 in the Songbirds Garden series, and this is the only one I own. It's probably the only one I'll stitch. I love the autumnal feel of this. I love that little pumpkin house, and I love that bird. So, and of course, this font is amazing. That font is amazing. So I made a start. I kitted this up with 40 count Valor. And I actually think back here, that's pretty close. It might be a little greener than it's showing. I feel like everything looks gray when I look in the video. Yeah, so that was my start. I started near the middle and I did the word first, and then I started working up. I figure I'll work my way up to the top and work my way around. So that's like 2 days of work, and then I went to a new start. I do not know when I will get back to this. Maybe the first day of fall. We'll see. Okay. Next. Next. I'm actually using some of my haul in this next one. I also started this last week. I had made my very first trip over to the Attic Needlework, which is my local needlework store. I didn't realize that it was only 4 miles away from my house. So I went there like 3 weeks ago, I think now. It was right before everything got crazy and they were still open. I think just a couple days later they had to close their doors and they were just doing like curbside pickup and phone orders. But anyway, I went there looking for fabric. And one of those pieces of fabric I'm using for this. This is a Vale Stitchery design, super easy. If stitched on 16 count, this will fit in like a 5x7 frame. However, I've been really enjoying stitching on smaller. I've been enjoying stitching smaller. So I am stitching this actually on my very first piece of 46 count fabric. And I plan to also do its twin or sibling, which is another one of my designs also on this fabric, and I would love to have them framed the same way. I love the lace borders on these pieces. I love the skulls, perfect for Halloween, perfect for the macabre. It would go again really well in my living room because I'm a closet goth girl. So I am using this piece of Lakeside linen in 46 count cedar plank. Where's my start? Here it is. In cedar plank, which is this gorgeous, like grungy, grayish brown color. Let me fold it again. So this is my small start. Very small start. And the reason I did not get any further than this is because I've been stitching with size 26 needles, and on this, which I'm actually okay using on 40 count, but when on this 46 count, I really felt that I would be more comfortable using a smaller needle. I have never used a size 28 needle before, but this is the girl that used to be unable to stitch with anything but a size 24 needle. And I finally got used to stitching with a size 26 needle. And so I could totally stitch with a 28. So once I get my size 28s in, which I have ordered, I will get back to this because I want to get a little more done on this. And then I want to start the spooked one with the human skull. These are available in the Vale Stitchery shop, valestitchery.etsy.com. Again, I saw this linen on a table and I fell in love. So super, super happy with that. So that's the bit of haul, that fabric, because that was like $32. Okay, and then I think there's only one more. We're on the last one. And there's a bit of haul in this one too from the attic. Okay, so this is a Vale Stitchery design that is not released yet. It is called, well, this version is called the Midsummer Path. And I designed this specifically for my bedroom. As I said earlier, I don't have any cross stitch up in my room at all. And as I also described that my room is sort of like a Midsummer Night's Dream theme, like a Twilight in the Garden, I designed this specifically for my room. And when I was at the attic and I was going through all of their fabric, I saw this really rustic piece of 20 count Aida. I did not know this got made. I didn't know that this was even a thing. So I picked this up thinking that it would be perfect for this design because I'm planning to mount this on a board and with some like florals and ribbon perhaps, and mounting it on my wall. And this is probably what will be up there until I can get around to the the unicorns. So here's my start on this. And while I was at the attic, I decided to take the liberty to pick out some fancy floss to kind of work on this a little bit. Again, I'm a huge fan of negative space, so if you can see the bottom band, the motif in the middle of the bottom band is charted to be black. So technically you could stitch the black and you could do your whole outline in black and then mindlessly go through it with a color, or you could leave it without. I mean, I think it would look great. What I love about this is you could technically not do any of the color. You could leave all the color out and just do the black, or instead of black, do a variegated floss and go, you know, substitute the black for variegated and then not do any of the color. Like, there's a lot you could customize in this piece. So I am stitching this bottom band with Weeks Concord, which is a beautiful variegated purple. It's just got like a slight variegation to it. It's got kind of like a brighter berry purple mixed with like a duskier, duller purple. And I love the way this is coming out. I've used this same font that was with the Mausoleum and the Tavern. And the reason it's not released yet for other people to stitch is because I also want to chart it as the Moonlit Path, and maybe change this up a little bit because the Midsummer Path is very specific to me. Like, this was specifically designed for my bedroom, and I feel like the Moonlit Path might jive with more people. So I kind of wanted to have the two versions available before I released it. But anyway, I love this. I love that lacy border that goes with it. I don't know. I love this. I'll probably stitch on this some more in the next few weeks because this is Ada, it is stitching up so fast. I can get through so much of this. So yeah. And let's see if I can show. So part of my haul was that 20 count Ada, which I didn't know you could get. Amazing. And then of course, the Concord grape. I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well. That is the Concord grape. And I also picked out, for the gold sections, I picked out Weeks Curry. Curry? Yeah. Weeks Curry, which is this gorgeous, like slightly variegated gold color. I don't like too much variegation. I like something that's like a little interesting to look at, but just not too crazy. So if I can show the picture one more time, just the gold pieces, which is not a lot. It's just the moons, the full moon and the two crescent moons. That's it. Will be that fancy floss, and then I've got a little bit of blue in there, and then of course the gorgeous purple. So that is all of my whips. Again, I'm planning so many starts, you guys. Let's do haul, and then we'll talk plans. However, the haul is basically part 1 of 2. I don't know if any of you guys are this way, but like, being cooped up at home, I have so many online shopping carts full of stuff that I've had to walk away from to think about before, like, impulse buying. I don't know what it is about, like, browsing stuff at night before I go to bed. It'll be like 10 o'clock, it's dark, I'm like in bed with the lights out, and I've got like my tablet open, and I'm like browsing Etsy and browsing Amazon and browsing 123 Stitch. That is dangerous. None of this haul, by the way, that I'm about to show you is budgeted. This was not budgeted. This was, let's make mama happy while she's depressed. and anxious. So before I open, and I haven't even looked at this came today. And no, I did not put it in quarantine for 2 to 3 days, as people are saying, because I'm a wild child. I don't know. I'm stuck at home. I can't. I want to open this today. I've waited a week for this because one of the patterns I wanted wasn't available for a week from when I ordered, and so they held my entire order for that. So it took a week to ship, and then it took 2 days after that because I live they're in Utah and I'm in Arizona, so it's not too far. But before I show that, I did kit up something for a different pattern in there. So this is the last haul I will show from the attic. And this is Night Walked Down by the Blue Flower. Sorry. It says, Night walked down the sky with the moon in her hand. And I've seen this. I think someone on Flosstube is working on this. It may be one of the many whips that is kind of like in their pile. But I love this. This is going to go up in my room. Unfortunately, I did not get all the fancy floss. Not all the fancy floss was available, and also it's expensive. And again, this was not budgeted, so I got mostly DMC with a couple of fancy floss mixed in. So anyway, this is going to be a new start. We'll talk about plans in a minute. But anyway, so let's do some haul. Again, this is part 1 of 2. I placed one order a week ago Friday, and then all that week I kept thinking about other things I wanted, and then I ended up just doing the hell with it and placing a second order like on the Thursday, so like less than a week later. And then after that, I'm still adding stuff to my wish list. I'm still having ideas of like, oh, I could stitch this, I could stitch that. It's not good. It is not good. I finally had to put a stop to it and tell myself that I needed to wait. I needed to at least wait until these 2 orders came in for me to analyze what exactly am I working on? What can I afford? Do I really need to place a 3rd order for charts that are not going to get finished? I don't know. We'll see. All right, so we'll look at floss in a minute. And I'm only going to show like the fancy floss. And basically anything that is not DMC is fancy floss to me. Because I'm a DMC stitcher. I have drawers of DMC. Because as a designer, I like to be able to pull out the DMC color while I'm picking colors in my program to see what they actually would look like together. So here's all the DMC that goes with the Blue Flower chart, and then 2 charts that are in my package right now. That is the DMC for that. I think there was like 2 or 3 colors that were not available. And then I have 3 colors, or 3 colors because I cannot count, 4 colors that I picked out of the chart that were available to go with the Blue Flower, with Night Walked Down. So I think it is her dress, one of the colors in the flowers, and some of like the yellowy stems and stuff. So I definitely wanted to do her dress in the fancy floss of what was called for, and then I think I picked one of the main colors of the flowers, and then some of the yellow and the greenish, brownish vines that the flowers come off from. I think I also got that one. So I am excited to start that. I cannot even tell you. I am so excited to start that. One of these things is getting started tonight, so let's show the rest. So I got a pattern by, and I'm going to butcher this, but Cuore e Battacure, and this is called Sunflower's Farm. Let me try and not get glare. So how cheerful does that look? That looks so cheerful to me. I love sunflowers. I think sunflowers to me like scream summer. And I saw this chart and I just thought it would be just a perfect start during this time to just cheer me up. So this is definitely going to get started soon. And then the other chart I got was by Little Dove Designs called Adjust Your Sails. I'm sure you guys have seen this one. Also, nautical themes are very summery to me, even though I hate being on boats. I cannot stand being on boats in the water. Like, please leave me on the beach. That's fine. But I'm all about summertime right now. I think that is just such a cheerful thought. And I saw this and I just thought this would be really just perfect to start. So, unfortunately, that color that is the main waves of the water was not available. I believe that's a DMC Variations. But depending on what I think, I have several skeins of that ocean color by Weeks that I did this ornament in. I don't know where that went. That I'm actually gonna like test to see if maybe I can substitute that since I already have it. So yay, stash diving. So those are the two patterns I got from 123 Stitch. And then of course I ordered four things of fabric. And the only, let's see. Okay, so I got some more Valor. I had to get Valor. I love this. And what's interesting about this is that this new piece of Valor is definitely more green than the other one. The other one's a bit more faded looking. This Valor is more green. And of course it's showing up more gray in the photo, but it's definitely more green. It's got some nice modeling to it. Very pretty. And then I have, and that's 40 count, if I didn't mention. Then I got 40 count Truffle by Picture This Plus, which is a really pretty pink color, which of course is not showing up whatsoever. Not whatsoever. It's a really pretty pink. And I was actually thinking of when I looked at this online, and I think online it looked a bit more purpley, not as pink. But I was thinking of doing this on this fabric, which of course you cannot see the color at all, but that's fine. In the picture, I'm actually not sure what it's called for. 40 count Shrinking Violet Linen, which was secured from kittenstitcher.com. But it looks, in the photo, it looks like pinkish purple. So honestly, I think I'm going to use this for this pattern. I really wish it would show up, but it's getting dark now, and so you're getting my like yellow lights. That's fine. I got a larger piece of Nocturne by Picture This Plus. Nocturne, if you'll remember, I stitched my Halloween ornaments on, which is interesting that from this distance, this Nocturne actually looks a little bit like Haunted by Picture This Plus. However, Haunted is a little bit like grayish greener. This is definitely blue. This is a mottled blue color, and that actually looks pretty accurate, which is interesting. Blue never shows up accurate for me. So there's that. And then I picked up 40 count Bramble by Picture This Plus. Bramble is a new color for me. I've never seen it in person before. In the photos is a little bit greener than this. This is definitely more white, but it definitely has like this greenish marbly texture to it, which is interesting. Very cool. So we'll see. Sunflower Farm, I'm not exactly sure what. I think I was planning to do Sunflower Farm on Bramble, but I think Bramble is a little too light for this. Honestly, I might do the Valor, although I wish it were the lighter color that I have on hand and not this darker one. I might do Valor because the green and the yellow in this is so bright that I think the green background will look very naturey. But I also might do the Nocturne because yellow is gonna pop on that blue. So I'll do a floss toss with the colors on that and make a decision, but that is definitely going to be a start in the next few days. And then adjust your sails. You know what though? I think I was going to do adjust your sails on that Nocturne. So we will definitely do a floss toss and we'll see. I'm trying to think of what's in my stash already that might work for this, but we'll see. But yeah, all three of those patterns, adjust your sails, Sunflower Farms, and Night Walked Down are definitely getting started this week. I have 3 more patterns coming in the mail, along with some fabric specifically for those patterns, and my size 28 needles are coming in that second package. I did not order any floss in that package. My goal for those patterns that are in that package is to try to kit them up with stash. So that's one of the reasons why I held off on a crazy third order, because if I do need floss, I'm gonna wait and take an account of what I have before I do that. And then of course, if I'm getting floss, I will probably pick up some of those patterns that I've favorited. So yeah, so that is all my haul. And trust me, typically I do not have that much haul. And of course I have more coming, but I am just, it makes me happy. I like having the possibilities. I love all these starts. It's just, it's fresh. It's full of possibility. It's exciting. So I'm just going to let it ride for now and enjoy it. And, like I said, I feel like in about 2 or 3 weeks from now, I will definitely probably get back to the whole organization deal and with goals, because typically that's who I am. I'm very organized. I love goals. That's how I work. But right now, I cannot. No, my battery's running low. Okay. Well, hold on. I'm going to pause the recording again and plug in my laptop, and we will finish this out. Okay, so I plugged my computer in. This has been an extremely long video so far. I was actually thinking this would take like 30 minutes. I should have known better because, yeah. So I'm gonna leave you real quick with my first experience going to a local needle workshop, and we'll just end it there. So yeah, I knew that the Attic Needlework was an Arizona needlework shop, but I just never realized how close it was to me. And also, when I first really got back into cross stitching, I've always been about like the the dimensions kits that you can get from your big box stores. I've always been about like the DIY, like Etsy patterns and stuff. So like that's really where I came from. Cross stitch wise, it's only really been in the last 2 years or so that I've really dug into Flosstube and really got into, all the patterns everybody's working on and showing and their stash, and just seeing like all of these more traditional designers that are out there. And so like the idea of walking into a local needlework shop by myself, because I don't know any local stitchers, was really intimidating. So I never really like took the time to research and to see where the attic was located, and it literally is 4 miles away from my house. So my mom came to visit at the beginning of March, and we didn't really have anything to do. She's kind of a homebody like me, and I asked her if she would be interested in going with me to the attic on a Saturday afternoon. And so, of course, she said yes. And so we went, and I have to tell you, there is nothing like seeing models in person. there were so many sampler models on those walls that were tiny stitches. I think most of those that I were seeing were like stitched on 56 count, over 2, because you're looking at it and you're like, those stitches are so tiny, how are those full X's? And then you're like, wait, that's linen, like that is over 2 threads of linen, that has to be 56 count. And they were gorgeous, they were so gorgeous. I have never stitched a sampler before. As you can see, my style is not quite the primitive or sampler style, but I do have an appreciation for it. And with the amount of samplers that are out there and the amount of, you know, charts and patterns that Flosstubers show on their videos, I am itching to start one. And so my issue with the current situation is, like, I totally get, you know, phoning your local needlework shop and placing orders that way, like old school, but like I have a severe anxiety about the telephone. That's a whole nother issue. So like not being able to visually see what I want, not being able to visually see what I want to kit up, is kind of an issue for me. In addition, I also can easily overspend that way. If I just say, hey, I want to kit up this very large sampler. Sure, go ahead, do silk. $300 later, I can't do that. So I am planning to, when everything is all said and done, I definitely want to go to the attic and kit up my very first sampler. That is definitely a plan I have, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the attic will definitely be the first place I go if I want some fancy floss, or if I'm really interested in getting some fabric that's different than Picture This Plus. The attic did have like a ton of selection of like Weeks Dye Works and Lakeside linens and stuff that you could see in person, and you could see the colors and you could see the weave, and it's definitely a different experience than shopping online for sure. So yeah, I had a great time. I basically went in the door, went to the right, walked all the way around the room. I looked at everything. I looked at all of the models. They were just so beautiful, and I definitely can't wait to go back. I will say that the attic has just recently started on Flosstube so that they can show all of the recent haul that they've collected from the Nashville Needlework Market. I believe they have 2 videos up. They might have a 3rd one up by now. I don't know. I haven't checked. But I will definitely link to them below. And if you do not have a local needlework shop and you are interested in supporting those brick and mortars, I will definitely include their contact information as well if you're interested. They are definitely connoisseurs of samplers, and the owner is a huge proponent of silks, very knowledgeable in that sense. So it was awesome, and I can't wait to go back, and it was definitely a great experience. So anyways, thank you. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you so much. I know it's been a really long time since I've recorded, but like I said, I've been watching Flosstube nonstop for basically the last 2 or 3 weeks. It has been incredibly calming and grounding to be able to have a brief moment in folks' just normal everyday lives, just a brief moment. It's just been incredibly calming to me. So I am hugely appreciative of the folks that are able and willing to take the time to record videos. For myself, I tend to overthink it and then push it off, and then I just don't do it. So here I am doing it on a Monday night after work, and I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful to come back next Monday night to show you guys what I've worked on and to show you part 2 of my haul. So hopefully I will see you next Monday night, or depending on when you see it, I'll be filming on a Monday night. Anyway, I hope that you guys have a great time stitching, that you have, you know, projects to work on that you're enjoying. Don't pressure yourself to work on something because you told yourself you needed to. Don't lose your stitchy bug that way. Stitch on whatever you want. Just stitch on whatever you want. And I hope you have a great rest of your week, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye!